Dash of green.
Welcome to another episode of In Your Business. Today we're going to meet with an interesting entrepreneur. And I know oftentimes I say that, but I truly mean it because I think all entrepreneurs are very interesting to me. You know, entrepreneurs are really doing what they enjoy and they're passionate about. And it's so thankful to have them because we bring them to the markets and we get to share them in the community. So today we're going to meet with Stu Milligan. And Stu Milligan has spent his entire life here in the area. And I know that because he and I grew up together. We were in the same elementary schools, middle schools, and high school. And well, we may not have known each other the best because it was large schools back then.
Yes.
We actually knew who each other was. So today we're going to get to know Stu Milligan as an entrepreneur. And I'm really excited about that, just to learn more about what it is that he has been doing and how he's been serving our communities. So Stu, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
So Stu, what I like to do is we're going to come up to the businesses. We're going to learn about what you're doing as an entrepreneur, but that's going to come a little later in the show. At the beginning of the show, I like to get to know you as you were growing up. You did grow up here in Richmond.
Yes. I grew up south of town, and I went to the Boston schools. And when Garrison Elementary was built, I went to Garrison. The first year it was open as a second grader, and then went back to Boston. And then with consolidation and lower enrollment, you know, we don't have 5 junior highs anymore. We only have technically 2 plus 1.
Sure, and I think that's what's interesting is because my first year in kindergarten was at Boston as well.
Oh, okay.
Then they built Garrison, so I was a year or two ahead of you. And it's really difficult, though, to know that we went to Garrison Elementary and it's no longer there.
No, it's level.
So that kind of dates us a bit, but that's okay. We still have a lot of fun. And so you went to Boston for your middle school, and I actually was at Dennis.
I'm going to say junior high. I'm old school.
Yeah.
I went to Boston for junior high.
Okay.
And then high school as a 10th grader. Yeah.
Okay. And so we did go to the same elementary, went to the same high school, but we missed each other in the middle school.
Okay. So you went to Dennis?
To Dennis.
Okay.
To Dennis Middle School. So,
yeah. Bulldogs. My dad, all their family went to Dennis.
Okay.
So Dennis would be my second favorite. Tess is always last.
Oh, okay. You're still holding that competitiveness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when you get beat 83-14 and you're the point guard, it's pretty embarrassing. And I just embarrassed myself again.
Well, it's good that it's still in your mind, so it really did affect you. So, but talk to us about when you were just that smaller person, you know, growing up. And what was it you were thinking when you were in 3rd grade, 4th grade? What was it that you couldn't wait to be? Was it to be a police officer? Were you going to be an ambulance driver? Were you going to be an attorney? What were you thinking?
I wasn't always a good son, but I definitely wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. So I was thinking I would be a lawyer at some point.
Okay. So as a young person growing up, you were going to be an attorney. By the time you hit the high school years, was that still in your mind?
Oh, no. A little bit. I thought about, being a doctor. My dad is a twin, so he was the lawyer, and his twin brother was the doctor. So we got to go out to their house a lot, and I liked his lifestyle a little more than my dad's, so I wanted to be a doctor. But one semester of chemistry, I learned that I need to go back to the law idea.
Okay, so then in college, where did you attend college?
I went to IU Bloomington, and I attended a couple classes here at IU East too. So I'm an IU grad, and I graduated in 1988. Took a year out, but I finished in the 4 years of study. So I was there during their last national championship win, and I remember cheering against Alford as a high school kid, but I cheered for him as a college kid.
Very good. So you still got that competitive sense. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So Stu, what did you study at college?
I started out with basic business and Bachelor of Arts in the Arts College. I took some telecommunications because Mark Cuban was like their recent celebrity graduate. So I wanted to follow in the communication school, and that lended into kind of what I did my year out. And I got some credits doing that travel year. Then when I came back, I concentrated on history to go the pre-law route. So I ended up with a history major. I almost have a Spanish minor, and then I have several of the introductory business core classes that are required to go into the business school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you pursue the law?
No, I learned that I probably wouldn't make it through law school with all the seat time in the library and the desk. So I pursued probably my natural talent. That would be sales.
Okay. So we're very fortunate because that's what led you into entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's great, but you're having fun. You're enjoying it.
I do have probably more fun than I have a lot of fun doing what I do.
Okay.
And I still work, but I have fun. Fun's a focus.
Sure, sure. Well, and I know your father.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't know your father growing up, but I know your father now as an adult, and we've served on boards together and done things here in the community together. And, I think he truly enjoyed his profession and just did an amazing job with it.
Yeah, he taught me and my mom as well. My mom was more quiet, but she actually was the social director. And I didn't realize it until after she passed. And then I saw my dad not being as active. So from my parents and my grandparents on both sides, I was lucky to live in the same town with both sets of grandparents. So they were involved with me quite a bit. And I'm the youngest, so I got a little more attention, probably, maybe discipline.
Yeah.
But the important thing was that they gave me a good sense of, what it is to be a community member. And I think I've continued that through what I do. And I'm a happy resident of Richmond, Indiana.
Great. So let's get into what it is that you do, because we still have a little bit of a path to get there.
Yep.
Okay. So you graduated from the university.
Yep.
And following that, what was your first job out of college?
My first job out of college was in California. I lived in California for a year, and that was sort of a quick decision. And I think my first job was selling shoes at a sports store. And I worked at a rose nursery. I was second, not second in charge, but I helped the master, I forget what Rosarian, but he was the master rose grower for a large grower in Modesto, California. And I worked with them. And then I did some TV sales, telephone sales for a real estate class. On telephone, and that was interesting. I sold appliances at a Macy's. I sold newspaper advertising for a tertiary paper. So between Modesto and Stockton, California, there's a little town called Manteca, and it smells because they refine potatoes into sugar, sweet potatoes or something like that. But they make a sugar product out of potato. And so I sold newspaper advertising for the Manteca News.
Well,
so I was all over the place. Then I moved back to Richmond after about a year, and then did some clerking for my father's firm, and then I landed into my first full-time job, which became an ownership position. So if you want to segue to that, you talked about it earlier, my tent stuff. I can do that now.
I would love to hear that, because that it's perfect, because as an entrepreneur, it's great to be able to hear this whole history of where you've been. We have a live studio audience today. Yeah. It's a group of students that started their careers.
I hope they don't take the long roundabout path that I did. It was fun, but yeah, sometimes you have to wander a little bit to get where you're going.
Actually, I kind of hope they do, because what happens is I have a shorter path than that. Now, I too sold shoes.
Oh, you did?
I worked at the mall for several years selling shoes at Gallencamp shoes.
Okay.
And then I transitioned into banking, and from banking into becoming a professor.
Great.
So I had a short path, but it's also really fun to hear the experience that you have, because it's that wealth of experience that's created who you are today. Yeah. So let's transition now.
Okay.
We actually brought you back from California to Richmond, Indiana.
Right. I was just gone about a year, and then fell into a business in Newcastle.
Okay.
So, want to continue with that transition?
Yeah, I do. When you say fell into that business, I want to know how that works. So,
well, we can kind of make fun of the business because it was burial vaults. So I didn't fall in a grave, but there was a little bit of fun. Always wordplay with burial vaults because it's not that fun of a business. But anyway, my mother's grandfather was a concrete manufacturer or products manufacturer. He made block and built some houses. Then he went to a meeting and learned a new thing to make concrete out of, and it was a burial vault, which is a superstructure for a casket. So if you go in a cemetery and you see all these headstones, older cemeteries, there's divots and leaning. The vault structure enables the ground to be more solid and stable, so that dump trucks or backhoes can roll across to open the next grave. Or the headstone, which has a foundation, won't lean over. Because the casket could rot, especially when they're made of wood or nowadays cardboard, but they go into something to be structurally sound. And that is a requirement for a burial liner or vault. Vault has protection kind of characteristics, so it sounds better than just a gray box. So I got into that because the manager was killed in an auto accident, and my grandfather, who had nothing to do with it, had this thing, and my dad said, go take an inventory. We might sell the properties for your grandfather's estate. I learned a little bit about it. I met the guys that worked there, and then I went out on some of the services where we would set up the tent and prepare for the lowering of the casket into our product. It was all included, and I just enjoyed it. And then I was asked if I wanted to manage it because there were 10 employees that were going to lose their jobs. And then I ended up getting a loan and buying it, and I did it for 15 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, though, because I'm going to play off the word just a bit, and you said you really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you enjoyed the entrepreneurship side of it, or if you enjoyed the process of it, or what it was that you enjoyed.
I am not a carpenter, but I like crafts. And there was a little bit of craftsmanship to the making of the concrete. And I created some new designs, and it was a response to what I felt was a need to be more competitive against my competition, because there's a choice, everybody, for burial vaults. When you need to make that decision, you can make a choice. So I was trying to make my product more attractive and offer more features. And then doing the servicing, my pay was part as a laborer, plus, owning it. And so that was the fun part I got to do. I got to wear a lot of hats. And in the winter, warm hats, because we were outdoors. There's no colder place than a cemetery in December or January or early February in East Central Indiana.
Sure. Well, I understand that. So were you manufacturing these vaults?
Yes, we wet casted, so we molded the concrete, so it has to be a little more wet, and then we vibrated that into steel forms, and then you would strip them the next day if there was proper curing. So
you've had quite an interesting career here, because you've been in the sales, but you've also been in the manufacturing and the service.
And managing, because I had employees.
That's correct. So just a variety. So you sold the company in Newcastle, is that correct?
Yeah, I sold it. It still exists. Wimmer Vaults, I think it's called Wimmer Manufacturing now. It still exists. It's been in business since 1910.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you decided to sell that, was that because your interest was moving in another direction, or you just decided it was the right time?
It was a financial need to sell. I needed to. I love the entrepreneurship, but I've learned a few times about the numbers and the pluses and minuses and the expenditures and investment, and I'm not the best money manager. I'm more on the creative sales promotion. And I had an interesting interview once. It was a company that sold windows. B Windows was the brand, if I may say. And I interviewed because it was a flexible job, and I was doing some other stuff. And I thought, well, this could be something up my alley. It was when I started my window shade business, so I wasn't fully busy. And I thought traveling around on another person's dime would get me to maybe see some opportunities. So I interviewed and got to maybe third stage or fourth, and the guy said, you're a promoter. The problem with you, we like you, you're a promoter, you're not a closer. We're going to teach you to be a high-pressure closer. I'm adding the term high pressure.
Okay.
And then I walked away. That's not me. I wanted to provide a service, and I kind of did that with the funeral industry. And then I want to provide a product. I want to promote the benefits, but I don't want to be a guy that's, high pressure sales. That's not me.
Stu, again, you're defining entrepreneurship for me, okay?
Yeah.
Because that's it. As an entrepreneur, and I claim myself as one as well, okay? And I definitely, teach what I do.
Yeah.
And what happens is, as an entrepreneur, you can't have somebody else telling you how and what to do. They can't make you that closer, okay? You have to be you.
Yeah, and I mean, to be true to myself, and I knew in a sales, I'm asking for people to give me their money,
right.
Their hard-earned money, and I need to believe. Now with the vaults, I know that sounds different, but I really believed we offered a valuable product, what was needed for a good price, and we provided a great service, which other people did as well, but I felt proud about that.
Sure.
Then in different sales that I've had, I've tried to take ownership in a way, almost too much. And then that's when I discovered that I needed to do my own thing. Mm-hmm. I was in my job after the burial vaults, if you want to transition to that.
I do.
So window shades. I had a learning experience for 10 years working for a corporation in Spiceland, a company called Draper, and they've been in business since 1902. So I learned the business, but I had already installed some shades in my house. But I was in a position that I was in marketing management for a territory, and it was the Mid-Atlantic. So Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Delaware, and West Virginia and Kentucky. So I would travel to the area, but most of the business was in the D.C. metro area. And I had to learn to be within, I still see my manager, stay in your channel.
Okay.
Because I was used to doing my own thing. And if I had a question, I wanted to walk it to the source, and I wasn't supposed to do that as often as I did. So I left that role, and I quit, and I drove down to Rushville, Indiana, and I made my first sale. And I went to a hospital and asked to talk to the facilities director, and I got an opportunity to quote some window shades for, 5 or 10 rooms. And that was my first sale. The first afternoon of the day I quit my job for the manufacturer, and then I became and still had a relationship with, as a dealer. I grew that into a relationship for that company.
So that
independent dealer.
That influenced your decision, though, and that created the opportunity.
Yeah, and I had already kind of hobby hustled or had a hobby business doing some shades, because when I would have a conversation with someone, what do you do? Well, I sell shades. Well, we need shades. And I go, you do? Well, I could maybe help you, but we were supposed to do it on sort of a low volume once in a while, and I just really enjoyed it too much, so I needed to go and start my own thing at that point, and I did it all on the same day. I quit and got a new sale.
And it's great working for yourself.
Fun. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
And
it's a lot of peanut butter and jelly, a lot of macaroni and cheese and tuna. What else? I kept name brand soda. But yeah, there were some lean times there the last 10 years.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that's what we're used to. But you wouldn't trade that, I don't think.
Oh, no, it's fun. It's growth opportunity. And then personally, I was in a position to be free. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's great not to have somebody judging you and not telling you what you should do and such, and having that freedom and flexibility. So
yeah.
But the shades, we talk about the shades because I really didn't even realize that a part of you. But you and I ran into each other here in the community,
right?
And you were sharing with me about the shades, and I had just received shades.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But you shared with me.
Yeah, I missed that sale.
Because I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you shared with me though that if I have any issues with my shades,
sure,
you're there for me.
Yeah.
And so it's not just selling shades, but you also are doing some servicing with them. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Just for example, like you, someone called me and said their product, wouldn't work, and now you can just use YouTube and figure out how to figure it out instead of go through a boring journal or instruction manuals. And was able to help them, and that led to putting new shades in their bedroom. And then I went back again to correct some more things. But the original product was not mine. The installation was not mine. And it's important to, to help and benefit the customer. You add value. And you never want to like detract from what was already there, because they spent good money on something else that may work. They just didn't have it plugged in right, or
right.
It was it was a motorized thing, so it was a little different. But
yeah,
it was a fun little challenge. And then I got like the next sale out of it.
But I do know those things are personal.
Yeah,
okay? And I know that because for the first time, 1 year ago, I put in motorized blinds in my home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy them. But I also know that it is personal enough that while YouTube is great, getting somebody like yourself to come in who understands the product is much more meaningful. Yeah,
one is to believe in a product that you like, and then to be able to provide it and work, install it, do it correctly, and then have a positive experience from that. One thing that I rely on, I'm just myself.
Right.
I don't have a staff. So one thing I rely on is a lot of word of mouth sales. So in the beginning, I was doing, schools. I talked to general contractors, facility people, and I could get jobs that way, and small, like 2 or 3 rooms. Not a new building, not a big 5 years down the road budgeting, kind of scenario. Just at need. We have these 4 rooms we're converting. Will you give us a price? So that's my specialty, and that's what I like to do. Good. So because of time, we'll run out. Okay, you've got a very interesting story, but I want to make sure we get everything included today. Okay. Yep. So we have the blinds now, but you have a lot of other interests as well, and you're known throughout the community for a lot of those interests. And I know you have a lot of the bike routes and such that you're doing now. But tell us about some of the other interests in entrepreneurship. So going back, and then what we just talked about and forward, an interest of mine is community. And Richmond has been on some hard times. And when I moved, I was away for about 20 years. I lived in Newcastle and even did a short stint over in Preble County near Eaton. When I came back, there was this thing called the Richmond Bike Loop. And boy, it was heated. I mean, it almost affected a mayoral election. It did, actually. And then the last election probably too. So I went to the park department and said, hey, let's do some programming for this bike loop. And then with that, I created a ride series. And that has now kind of evolved a little bit into a business. But that's probably what you have heard, and it's called Richmond Rose Petals. So Richmond Rose Petals, and then also, so tell us about that though. So why that? Why are you so interested in it? So I've biked a little bit, but I'm not a hardcore. I'm what you would call a slow roller. So I'm a tour rider, and I rode home from IU once in a day. It's 131 miles. That's my wait a minute. You rode a bicycle from IU Bloomington back to Richmond? Yeah, it's 40 years ago, so I was a little better shape. I left. I had breakfast at Perkins, and then arrived home at 7:30 at night. And I took basically Highway 44 all the way across Indiana from State Road 40. I guess I met it at 45, 46. Anyway, but yeah, 131 miles a day. Stu, my fingers were numb for 4 days. I get tired making the drive. Yeah. Yeah, I had to come home from college accomplishing something, so I rode home. Oh my goodness. Well, Little Five's huge. I was in a fraternity, and they had a team, and it was just a big deal. So I bought a bike and rode home. Sold my moped from mowing yards as an entrepreneur in junior high school to buy a moped to buy a bicycle. That's kind of backwards, but yeah. All right. So I hope you still have the bicycle. I sold that one for another bike, and I now have several bikes. Do you? But the rides, I like to ride. I tried the rain ride across Indiana. Okay. That's coming up this weekend, I think. It finishes at Earlham College, and that's 162 miles. I only made it to Knightstown. I didn't make it the whole way. So I was a DNF, a did not finish kind of guy. I've done some other rides. The Hilly 100 down in Bloomington area, 2 days of 50 miles. That's a big deal. Yeah. The night ride in Indy. So I want to create some of those things in Richmond to offer something fun. And we have great bicycling here. We've got the Cardinal Greenway. We've got the Gorge Trail. There's Hayes Arboretum for mountain biking. There's a small path off North J Street called the American Heritage Trail. We have the bike loop. And then we had a BMX bike park. So there's like 6 venues to ride bikes in town, different types of riding for all types of people. So I wanted to celebrate that because it was something cool about Richmond.
Sure.
And so this Richmond Rose Petals was an effort to provide programming that wasn't being provided by the parks or the city or anybody else. And I make it open to everybody. It's free. And I've now started signing sponsors for each ride because it was about $200 out of my pocket every ride to create like a cool poster. Mm-hmm. And this ride coming up is fun. It's the Handlebars and Dilly Bars ride. And I thought of it because I thought, I wonder how many miles it would be to go all 3 Dairy Queens and eat Dilly Bars at each one. So it became the Handlebars and Dilly Bars ride.
That's great. I love the themes. I love when you put it all
it's
together.
August 3rd. It's August 3rd. It's a Facebook page. You can find it on Facebook, Richmond Rose Petals. Yeah.
Stu, if you can imagine, we're down to our last minute.
Okay, yeah.
So you also have a piece of wood here that I have to ask
so
about.
another little hobby project business is photography. And I use local vendors for all my printing and get design work. And then I buy my shades in Spiceland. But I take pictures of barns. It's a hobby. And people said, you ought to make a book or a calendar. So I made postcards, and I even made barn postcard calendars so you can share that experience. And then these are made by a local vendor, Scott Bartle, out of reclaimed barnwood. And I learned about that idea from another guy at the farmer's market. It goes on and on.
That's awesome. Stu, you're doing a great job.
Oh,
thanks for being here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right. This concludes another episode of In Your Business. Today, we got to meet with Stu Milligan. I'll tell you, what an entrepreneur. And he cares so much about this community and always putting things back into this community and making things great for each of us. So I hope you take this opportunity. When you see Mr. Milligan out there in the community, say thank you. He's a wonderful entrepreneur, and I appreciate him being on the show today.